Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're stepping away from geopolitics and finance for a bit.
We are. We're talking about something that is, believe it or not, just as rare and, in some places, just as fought over. A prized natural remedy.
A substance so rare, so sought after, that it's picked up nicknames like liquid gold, the honey of ancient kings, and even sacred honey.
We are, of course, talking about Yemeni Sidr Honey. And this is really a perfect example of what we love to do here.
Where ancient tradition slams right into cutting-edge science.
Exactly. Our sources today are all over the map. On one hand, you have the traditional marketing claims, talking about its prestige, its thousand-year history, all wellness benefits.
And on the other hand,
We have rigorous, peer-reviewed scientific studies, and they are testing everything from its basic antimicrobial power to its potential use in, of all things, nanotechnology.
that is quite a spectrum. It's like taking folklore and putting it through a mass spectrometer.
It is. So our mission here is really twofold. First, we need to understand why this specific honey, it's a monofloral honey, has such a staggering reputation and price tag.
And second,
More importantly, we need to distill what modern science actually says about it, especially when the results, as you'll see, are not always what you'd expect.
okay, let's unpack this. And I think we have to start right at the source
Yeah.
because the location, in this case, seems to dictate the entire story.
It really does. The prestige starts with the raw material. This is a monofloral honey.
Meaning the bees are feeding from just one type of flower.
Almost entirely, yes. In this case, it's the wild sidra tree, which is also known as Christ's thorn, botanically, Ziziphus spinochristi. It's an incredibly hardy, ancient desert tree.
And the most famous version of this honey doesn't just come from Yemen in general. It comes from one specific, almost mythical valley.
That's the key distinction. We're talking about the Wadi Doan, or the Dome Valley. It's nestled deep inside Yemen's Hadramaut Governorate.
And what's that area like?
It's dramatically arid, just rugged mountains all around. The isolation, the unique microclimate there, all of it contributes to the nectar's very specific chemical profile.
And it was historically important, right?
For millennia. The valley was a strategic point along ancient trade routes, so its value has been recognized for a very, very long time.
The sources really emphasize how its history is tied up with religion and ancient medicine, which cements that whole sacred status.
It's a recurring theme. The tree, the honey, its products.
Yeah.
They're mentioned in ancient carvings, various scriptures.
I think I saw a reference that it was used by the Prophet Muhammad.
That's right, it's cited as having been used by him to treat all sorts of ailments. This long, unbroken history is precisely why it commands so much respect, and where that liquid gold nickname comes from in the Arab world.
Okay, so you have the history, the sacred status, but how does that translate into the huge price tag and the scarcity today?
It's a few things compounding the rarity. First, the harvest is seasonal. It only happens in the winter. Second, the trees are wild. They're growing in these harsh, uncultivated desert areas, so you can't just set up a massive industrial farm.
And then there's the process itself. It sounds like it's intentionally kept, well, difficult.
Exactly. The most critical factor for its purity is the traditional extraction method. It involves just immense manual labor.
So simple tools, no machines?
Simple tools and absolutely zero chemicals, pesticides, or fertilizers. The bees are basically left alone, and the honey is extracted unheated, completely raw, and just poured into containers.
And that raw state is what protects all the good stuff.
It preserves the nutritional and, crucially, the enzymatic value.
We should probably mention that other countries nearby produce a similar honey. Saudi Arabia, Oman, Pakistan.
They do, and sometimes they use more modern, cheaper methods, but the Yemeni version from that valley remains the benchmark.
The gold standard of liquid gold.
Right. The traditional process in Wadi Doan is what certifies it as the purest, highest grade.
Yeah.
And then just the difficulty of getting it out of there safely. That adds a lot to both the myth and the cost.
So if you actually get your hands on a jar of this, what should you expect? What's it like?
It has a really deep, rich, distinctive profile. The smell is floral, but also very fruity.
How the taste?
It's sweet, of course, but a lot of descriptions mention a caramel-like depth. It's not greasy or cloying, and the texture is thick, a little sticky.
Okay, moving past the taste, the composition is what's really fascinating here. It's rich in antioxidants, vitamin C, minerals like calcium, iron, potassium. But there's one chemical property that's really surprising.
This is a huge point. Most honeys are actually quite acidic.
Right, they usually have a pH of, what, 3 or 4?
Yeah, somewhere between 3.2 and 4.5. And that acidity is a big part of why honey fights microbes.
But Sidr honey is different.
Totally different. What's so surprising is that its pH level has been found to be remarkably close to the physiological pH of the human body.
So instead of your body having to work to buffer this acidic thing you just ate.
It just slips right in. This near neutrality is believed to be why it absorbs so quickly and easily. It might even be the biochemical reason people have used it for centuries as this, almost immediate therapeutic syrup.
That's a perfect pivot into the traditional claims because this was never just about food, it was always about medicine.
Always. Throughout the Middle East, it earned the name the ultimate healer. It's often called possibly the best medical honey in the world.
And that reputation is built on centuries of use, right? Starting with skin treatments.
Yeah, topical uses.
Yeah.
Because of its antibiotic nature and all those antioxidants, it's an old favorite for treating skin infections, sun damage, even chronic acne and signs of aging.
Also for conditioning, like for a dry scalp.
Exactly. And crucially, for open wounds to prevent infection. You can put it on directly or even dilute it as a kind of antibacterial spray.
And what about internally? The traditional claims there are pretty vast.
They are. It's used to fight inflammation, soothe stomach ulcers, treat insect bites.
The sources get really specific here. They mention it being used against the bacteria that cause sinus infections and yeast infections.
Yes, but the claim that really demands scientific proof is about its anti-inflammatory power.
What did that study find?
Well, one of the modern studies we looked at analyzed its phytochemicals. Those are the complex compounds from the plant. And it concluded that its anti-inflammatory properties are, and this is a direct quote, more superior to all other kinds of honey.
Wow, superior to all other kinds. That's a huge statement.
It's a massive claim. And that kind of thing is exactly why we have to move past tradition and get into the lab.
Right, because traditional knowledge gives you the hypothesis, but science has to run the tests.
Precisely. To find the mechanisms and, just as important, the limitations.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting. When we take these ancient claims and put them to the test, a big study we looked at analyzed Sidr honey from 3 different places.
Right. 2 from Saudi Arabia, 1 from Pakistan, and importantly, from 3 different species of bees. They wanted to see if the effects were consistent.
Let's start with the big confirmation. Its antimicrobial power.
The results there were very clear. All 3 honeys, even at a pretty low 20% concentration, showed significant antimicrobial activity.
Against what kind of bugs?
A pretty broad spectrum. It inhibited gram-positive bacteria like B. subtilis, some key gram-negative ones like E. coli and P. aeruginosa, and also the common fungus C. albicans.
So the traditional use as an infection fighter holds up.
It absolutely does. And one of the samples was a real overachiever.
Which one was that?
It was honey H1, a Saudi sample from the Apis mellifera geminitica bee. Its ability to inhibit bacterial growth was actually greater than the positive control in the experiment.
And the control was?
Penicillin, a standard dose of penicillin.
So a natural honey outperformed an antibiotic in a lab test. That's incredible.
It is. And like you said earlier, it's not just because honey is thick and acidic. It's a whole chemical cocktail at work.
The osmolarity, the low pH, that's part of it. But there's more.
Much more. When you dilute the honey, an enzyme, glucose oxidase, gets activated, and that's what releases hydrogen peroxide, the antiseptic.
And even that's not the whole story. It's the non-peroxide stuff, right? That's where the Sidr tree's unique fingerprint really comes in.
That's the key. These non-peroxide substances, high levels of phenolic compounds, flavonoids, these are the sophisticated elements. They're unique to the Sidr nectar, and they're the main drivers of that exceptional activity we're seeing.
Okay, now let's move to the biggest claim of all. Anti-cancer activity. The results here get really nuanced. This is where you, the listener, really have to pay attention.
This is a major cautionary tale. The study tested the honey against 2 different human cancer cell lines. On one hand,
The good news first.
the good news. It shows strong anti-cancer activity against Hep G2 cells. Those are liver cancer cells. The honey successfully stopped them from proliferating.
A clear win for the traditional claims, but the story changes completely with the other cell line.
A shocking difference. When they tested it against HeLa cells, that's the cervical cancer line, the honey alone showed no inhibitory effect at all.
None.
Worse than none. The data showed that the honey actually stimulated the growth of the HeLa cells.
Wait, it stimulated them. So someone self-medicating with this for cancer could, depending on the type of tumor, actually be making things worse.
That is the precise critical insight here. Honey is not a simple one-size-fits-all cure. It can be an anti-tumor agent in one context, like with the liver cells.
but a cell-stimulating or mitogenic agent in another.
Exactly. The honey's chemical structure is interacting differently with the cell's specific receptors and needs.
And this complexity just gets deeper when you look at the immunomodulatory effects, where the region and the bee species were, again, the deciding
We
factors.
saw completely different results there, too. They tested the honey on normal rat splenic cells, which are key to the immune system. Honey H1, that superstar sample from the Saudi Yemeni bees,
What did it do?
it stimulated the growth of these healthy immune cells.
Which would suggest an immune-boosting property.
Right. But H2 and H3, the other Saudi sample and the one from Pakistan, both inhibited the growth of those same normal cells.
So, stimulating versus inhibiting normal, healthy cells, how can one type of honey have such opposite effects?
This is the ultimate takeaway. It proves that just labeling it Sidra honey is not enough. The specific mix of bioactive compounds depends entirely on the geography, the soil, the climate, and even the species of bee collecting the nectar. It's an incredibly complex regional chemical fingerprint.
That level of specificity is worth the price of the jar alone. But let's get to the finding that vaults this ancient remedy into the 21st century. I'm talking about the nanotech connection.
This is truly a remarkable finding. It's where nature meets advanced material science. The researchers tested if the honeys could be used for something called green synthesis.
And they could.
All three of them. They were all capable of spontaneously creating spherical silver nanoparticles AGNPs just by being mixed with the silver nitrate solution.
So you're saying the honey itself acts as a tiny chemical factory, creating microscopic spheres of silver.
Yeah, that's exactly what green synthesis is. The honey's natural compounds, alcohols, alkanes, things like that, they act as reducing and capping agents. They chemically create the nanoparticle and then wrap around it.
How small are we talking?
Spheres between 50 and 90 nanometers. And in this process, the honey's own molecules get consumed, which fundamentally alters the biological properties of the final solution.
And this altered solution, this new silver honey cocktail, it solved that big problem we just talked about with the HeLa cells, didn't it?
It did. First, the antimicrobial activity generally went up when the silver nanoparticles were present, but the huge breakthrough was with the cancer cells.
What happened?
The HeLa cells, the ones that were dangerously stimulated by the honey alone, were strongly inhibited when the solution contained those newly formed silver nanoparticles.
That is just a profound finding. The ancient remedy, when it's used as a precursor for a nanotech application, becomes exponentially more targeted. And in this case, it completely reverses that harmful effect.
And that is what this deep dive really boils down to for you. Sidr honey is undeniably powerful. It earns its name, liquid gold. But its effects are incredibly complex and completely dependent on the source.
We've gone from an ancient remedy for wounds to a modern tool for fighting antimicrobial resistance.
And a base material for nanotechnology. This shows you that to be truly informed, you have to move beyond tradition, beyond the liquid gold label, and look at the highly specific, nuanced science of it all.
The geography, the bee species, the cellular interaction.
You have to know the full chemical fingerprint of the gold you're holding.
Exactly. And now for a final, provocative thought for you to take with you. The nectar from the sidra tree was used centuries ago as a simple medicine. Now, we know its honey can spontaneously create microscopic silver spheres used in modern medicine. So the question is, what other ancient, pure, natural products are already doing the heavy lifting in nanotechnology without us even knowing it? That's something to consider. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.